And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the African American Athlete live stream, a Monday edition. Here with my friend and frat brother Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Monday instead of Sunday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope your team did well in the draft. Hope your teams won in the playoffs. But everybody didn't advance, and we're going to talk a little NBA basketball at the bottom of the hour when our great friend Matt Calvin joins us to give his insight on the NBA playoffs. And Mike, you know Matt, he doesn't hold back, man.
Right. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a ball talking about the Bucks. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Whatever's on Mac's mind, he's gonna let us know about it.
Yeah, I wonder what he's gonna say about Giannis is being a Greek philosopher.
You know what? I like that though, man. I really did.
I don't know if I liked it, but we'll talk about it. But yeah, I mean, I understand part of it, but yeah, if you were coaching a little league team, yeah, that's a great thing to say. But come on, man. Just face it. You guys blew it. That's embarrassing what you guys just did. And we don't want to hear some song and dance about, there's no such thing as failure. Yes, there is.
I disagree with you there, Mike.
There's no failure in sports.
As writers, and whatever you do, you're going to be competitive. As writers, we have awards that are given out every year. You have the Pulitzer Prize for the best work in journalism. If you don't win that, does that mean you're a failure? That's our NBA championship, being Sports Writer of the Year. I worked in Michigan 25 years as a sports column. I won that thing one time. I don't consider those other 24 a failure.
Well, but the thing about it though is you have to be. It's only a select few that's going to even be in the election process. Whereas, and when you're in a league situation, everybody there is up for that. You're gonna get guys. You could be
the same thing.
No, because you're gonna get some writers that have no chance of getting a writer of the year. You have to be at a certain level, and you have to have a certain reputation for people to even nominate you.
If you do quality work, if the judges think it's good enough, and they judge it, they judge on size of the. They have the large metropolitan papers,
right?
The smaller papers.
But guess what you just said? Someone's judging. That's if we were talking about the MVP award, then his point would have been valid, because that's what the MVP award would be like, getting writer of the year. That somebody has to judge that.
Yeah, but still,
it's a competitive motion when you're playing and y'all the number one seed and you expected to take it out and you get out in the first round. That's not even analogous.
Some sports have that. If you were a gymnast, you were at the mercy of the judges. You could have thought you had a 10.0, but if they say 9.5, you lose because that's
right. But if you fall,
they just happen to keep score in some of these.
Right, but what if you fall off the beam and make all kind of mistakes and get a 0?
Yeah, but how many times
failing?
How many times have you seen where somebody didn't do that? How many times have you seen where a boxer, they go 12 rounds, nobody gets knocked out? You thought X guy won. I thought Y guy won.
Right, so, and it comes down to the judges, right?
It's the judge. Yeah,
there's no judges in basketball. That's
but
what
it's still the same. But it's still the same concept. We'll get into it some more.
Yeah.
But I disagree because it's a way everybody. So anybody that doesn't win an NBA championship, his season is a failure.
Once again, I think he absolutely changed the whole narrative of what that was being asked. You had the number one seed, and in the last few years, you guys have been one of the top teams in NBA.
It does not matter.
But he wouldn't ask that question to somebody on Orlando Magic. He wouldn't ask that question to somebody on who else is horrible.
That doesn't mean that because they did not win, it was a failure.
I guarantee
who's the greatest
they're
golfer?
saying that in Boston about the Bruins.
Who's the greatest? I'm sure they are. But
yeah, the Bruins had the best record. They broke records and everything, and they're out in the first round.
But that doesn't mean they're right. The other team practiced too, man. Team practices too.
But if we're doing a competition, like I said, and we're dealing with let's say people gambling in Vegas, who do they expect to win the whole national championship? I mean, the whole world championship. It would be the Bucks. Vegas had them. So people bet all their money on a team that was expected to win. So I'm sure they're going to say that was a failure.
You are foolish to bet $1 on
any sporting event. Ricky, we got to be realistic. That's why sports are still alive, because of gambling.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean what Giannis said was wrong. I totally.
But him saying that the writer was wrong. Was he right to say the writer was wrong?
He said he asked him the same question. If you don't win sports,
but he said your question is wrong though. And I'm like, of course it wasn't wrong. It might have been redundant, but it wasn't wrong. And he would have been more valid to last year say that, hey man, we lost to Boston, who went to the championship. Boston was a higher seed than us, and we lost Middleton. So it'd have been more of him saying, dude, how you gonna ask me that when the higher seed beat us and we didn't have our second best player? So but this year they were the number 1 seed, so that question would be valid.
I'll use it. It was so funny to hear him say that the other day, because I've been using that. One of the things he pointed out forever when we talk about the greatest basketball player with Michael. Mike won 6 titles. What happened the other 9 times? Did he say, is it a failure? No, he was still the best player in the league, or one of the top players. I mean, I covered Barry Sanders during his career. Yeah. Barry won 1 playoff game. You think O.J. Anderson's a better player than Barry Sanders? O.J. Anderson got a couple of Super Bowl rings. No, he played on better teams.
But once again, let's go back to Michael. When the Bulls were the number 1 seed or expected to win, they won. Those 9 years that he didn't win, they weren't expected to win.
But Milwaukee was the number 1 seed in the East. That
doesn't mean the whole NBA.
But that doesn't mean they're supposed to win because you win. You know, there are all things that go. If things happen, he missed 2.5 games or 1.5 games. I assure you, he'd have won one of those games where he wasn't hurt. It's no doubt in my mind about that. But we'll never know because what? He didn't get to play. So that happens.
Okay, so let's say if Reggie Jackson's up at the plate, bottom of the 9th, they're down 1. Okay? And he strikes out. What is everybody going to say? He failed to get that clutch run, or he failed to get a hit.
Does that mean his whole season was a failure?
Well, but no, it wouldn't be if you're in the World Series. But if you out in the first round,
that means the year he hit 49 home runs and all that he did, and he struck out.
If you're done in the first round, that is a failure.
I totally disagree. I totally disagree. We'll continue, but before we get into that, and I appreciate, of course, and I respect where you're coming from, and I get, these guys make millions of dollars, so there's pressure for those guys to perform at a high level, and there could be some consequences in Milwaukee for their failure. I wouldn't be surprised if Budenholzer is fired. Yeah, because of that. But I still understand what Giannis was coming from, and I thought it was on point. But hey, before we I want to get into the NFL draft, and we're gonna be joined by our great friend Matt Calvin at the bottom of the hour. But Mike, we got to pay our respects here.
Oh yeah. Well, but you want to know something though? I got another one after we go through this one.
Go ahead.
One of our frat brothers and my line brother.
Go ahead.
To him too.
We'll start with him.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I definitely want to say rest in peace because yesterday, while Steph was going crazy, I had to go up to Vallejo, and the last viewing of my frat brother and of course line brother. And definitely tough. Yeah. So we were line brothers around the same age, big grad chapter. But I had to go to this viewing yesterday, and I didn't have to, but I definitely had to pay homage to my frat brother and line brother. And so we went up there, and so I want to pay. And he was up. Used to play ball back in the day, and definitely a sports fan. Used to love to make comments on some of the stuff I write on Facebook and sometimes on the show. So brother Kenneth Irving, rest in peace, brother, and enjoy your march to the Golden Shore and also chapter Invisible. So so rest in peace, Ken. So Ken Irving, Noop, yo, rest in peace.
I am so sorry to hear that, man. Yeah. I lost one of my line brothers a few weeks ago, so I totally get that, and our condolences to the Noop and his family. And I want to go to he's a brother of yours in another way.
Yeah, my fellow alumnus.
Yes, sir.
Know that human beings can't fly, but Ralph Boston sure came close. The man who was known as Hawkeye Boston soared to a combined 6 world records during his legendary collegiate career. As a junior at Tennessee State in 1960, he won the NCAA title in the long jump and spent that summer winning gold in the event at the Olympic Games. A year later, he became the first person to break the 27-feet barrier in the long jump. Boston was so dominant, in fact, he nearly claimed the NAIA team championships for the Tigers all by himself during his senior season, as he scored 47 points in 5 individual events. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, from Tennessee State, Ralph Boston.
Wow.
And
Rickey
passed away. Recently.
I had a chance to meet him because when I was younger, I used to see him on BET and all that. Not knowing I was going to go to TSU. Then I go to TSU. All these luminaries and all these great athletes, and we also got politicians. We got people of all walks of life, and so I was down there in '94 for homecoming, and at the time I had my show in Milwaukee. And I was there for homecoming, but I also found out that Richard Dent was going to go into the TSU Hall of Fame. So I said, man, I got to get over there for that, And I think I had my recorder with me because I said, as a dutiful journalist, you got to have your stuff with you. And I went over there and I was going to interview Dent. So I did interview Dent. But then I happened to meet Ralph Boston. I said, oh, man, this is absolutely a pleasure to meet you, sir. And we chit-chatted and all that. Then we fast forward to me moving out here. I moved out here in 2001. So the 2001-2002 school year, I'm also teaching, but I end up becoming a coach, track coach. And I was told by some guys that, hey, man, you won't believe this, but if you'd have been here a year ago, if you'd had this job a year ago, you would have coached Ralph Boston's twin grandsons. I said, what?
Wow.
Yeah, and their names are Martin and Malcolm. I mean, how poetic is that? And then I also got to give a shout out to Todd Boston, a proud Omega man, and also Martin's on an Omega man too. And he's also a TSU alum, so just want to give a shout out to him.
So Ralph was living Ralph was living in the Bay Area, man?
No. It was just his grandsons was living there. I'm not sure where he was living, but he's originally from Mississippi. I'm not sure where he was living, but his grandsons out here in the Bay Area. We're out here in the Bay Area, but I'm not sure where Malcolm lives now, but Martin, I think he's really doing well. He's has his doctorate and everything, so he's a professor, I believe, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And then Todd, as I said, is in Nashville. I didn't see him during homecoming, but I was trying to interact with him. But so there's the TSU connection, and then his grandsons out here in the Bay Area, and they did pretty well track themselves. So,
and he was there, man. That was that time period for HBCUs where it was the zenith.
Yeah,
because they wasn't going nowhere else but to TSU and FAMU.
But here's the other connection to the Bay Area. So during that time, because remember, he medaled in 3 straight Olympics. He had gold, silver, bronze. And during that time, of course, the Tiger Bells were the quintessential team for the women. But out here, Speed City down in San Jose State, that's where the men were. That's where you had Tommy Smith and John Carlos and all these other great runners that ran down there. And matter of fact, I had a chance to meet a lot of these great guys when they had a salute to Speed City and that 68 Olympic team with the right down the street at the high school.
The statue up. The statue?
Well, no, the statue was down in San Jose State.
Okay.
So that was a while ago. Matter of fact, our guy David Steele wrote about those two, and then he talked about being at the statue. And I have been down there, but no, it's a high school right down the street from me that actually had Nate Robinson played down there, and man, now I'm forgetting his name. Football player Roy Williams. Roy Williams also played down there. And they've had a few track stars down there. So that was a setting, and that's where I met Nehemiah. So that's why we had Nehemiah on the show a little bit later.
Yeah.
And then also my guy, my triple jumper from my home state, ran into him down there, and that's the first time we've actually talked because he was at the state meets and everything, but we never had a conversation. So yeah, so that was the thing. That the 60s, late 60s, it was all about San Jose State for the men's team. Yeah. And then, of course, the 60s, 1960 all the way through, because after Wilma it was Wyoming Tyus, And that team was so awesome. The whole relay team was all Tiger Bells.
With Tiger Bells.
For the USA. Yes.
The USA
relay team. I'm not. Some of the alternates were for somewhere else, but the 4 on the track that won the medal, all Tiger Bells. That's how awesome they were.
And they were coached by the great Lloyd Temple.
Yeah.
I mean, Temple. Lloyd is his son. And
Ed Temple.
Yeah.
And he was also the USA coach, right? Exactly. So
yeah, man. I mean, it was just amazing there. And Mike, that takes us right into our topic of the day. Not only was this going on in track and field, where you had these extraordinary athletes, but in football too, where you'd have HBCUs. Once these teams caught on, and I think it was the Super Scout for the Kansas City Chiefs, Lloyd Wells, and Bill Nunn's father over in Pittsburgh, that started looking at these HBCUs. You had all these brothers going to the NFL in the 60s and 70s, from Buck Buchanan to Willie Lanier, Otis Taylor, Walter Payton. We go on and on and on till Sunday in the NFL had one player drafted by the from an HBCU. That was Jackson State cornerback Isaiah Bolden, who was taken with the 245th pick by the New England Patriots. And there are a lot of people upset about that. Some of the legends of the game, such as Deion Sanders, who coached Isaiah at Jackson
exactly.
State,
That's what
and
I'm
Doug
saying.
Williams and Shaq Harris from Grambling. And leading into the draft, they had the HBCU combine where they brought in 200 players from HBCUs to work out and go through everything for NFL scouts. And out of that, only one guy was drafted. Now, 7 guys have signed so far in the
Free agency.
free agency. But to sum it up, and then
That's
I'll
a
get
half
your
a
thoughts
percent,
on it.
if you want to use math. That's a 0.5%. 1 out of 200 is a 0.5%.
And Doug Williams said he was stunned by that.
Yeah.
Your thought? Surely there was some 200 prospects. It was some draftable guys.
Oh yeah,
200 prospects. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's disappointing, and it's like you would think that, especially with the push that he made, that it'd be more players, even more players from Jackson State. But of course, his sons are underclassmen. Then of course, the high ranked high school player he got was also underclassman. So maybe it'll be different in a couple years. But then they won't be from an HBCU. See, how is that going to be when they go into the draft? It's going to be, are they considered HBCU students or the Power 5? So now that whole dynamic is messed up now.
And see, I was surprised. Brad Holmes, who is the general manager for the Detroit Lions, who went to HBCU, went to North Carolina A&T, drafted James Houston out of Jackson State last year, who had 8 sacks in 8 games once he got on the field. I was sure that he would have drafted somebody if he saw somebody worth taking, or at least signed somebody as a free agent. They still have plenty of guys to sign, so maybe we'll see that. But that is that's strange because what we always said, Mike, about the HBCU thing. Hey, if you can play, they'll find you, right?
Right.
Well, they aren't finding these guys. They didn't find these guys so far at the HBCUs.
Yeah, and it kind of takes me back to the days when I was there, because you figure. Excuse me for that. When I got to TSU, it seems like it was like in transition. We had an acting president, we had an acting AD who happened to be the great Gail Sayers. So we had a lot going on, and it seems like it was like the bridge or the separation of old school. So I was like at the last bastions of old school, and then they would change to new school because we know TSU looks totally different now. But it was funny how when I saw guys like Tony Stargell, Anthony Pleasant, even Frank Pillow, get drafted. You know what I'm saying? Man, these guys, during my era. Then, of course, Mason in basketball, even though it was the last third round. And so to see now that you got guys going to these HBCUs and it's like they don't get to witness anybody getting drafted, and they're just like, man, has it changed that much since the mid-'80s? When you would see football on TV on BET, you would see even basketball on BET at the HBCUs. So it's just interesting how the farther we've gone in time, it seems like it's getting even less of an emphasis. It's almost like, are these schools even necessary anymore? You get some people say that. Black people saying, man, are HBCUs really necessary anymore? And
any black person you see that said that, damn sure didn't go to a HBCU.
Exactly. But
clearly they have no idea.
But you know how it is. They're probably HBCU adjacent. They know people that went there. Right. And then you get the situation like the actor that played Bunk in on The Wire, when he was on the Get on the Bus movie that Spike Lee did. Yeah. And he was playing one of those hateful person said, man, I went to Vanderbilt. I wasn't gonna go to any of those N-word schools like TSU and Fisk and all that stuff. And it's like, and I know that's what Spike was doing to show how that is, but there are people like that.
Right.
That say, no, I got to go to Vanderbilt. And speaking of that, there's people that were saying, well, Oprah didn't really want to go to TSU. She wanted to go to Vanderbilt, and she's going to be a commencement speaker this year.
Well,
and the last time she did that was when I was in school. It was the 87 commencement, and she spoke there. And I think it was a whole bunch of controversy about did she get her degree then because of her, actually working on, I think, Channel 5 at the time.
Channel 5.
Yeah. I think she was at Channel 5 while she was a student.
WVOL radio.
Right, WVOL. And the thing about it is that one of my favorite professors, and I guess it was hers, Daddy Cox, he said that, girl, you better take this opportunity. They trying to get you on there. And it was like impeccable timing because it was like Title IX and all that. But also they were looking for minority women, or maybe they were thinking men, but minority women to be on the news. And it's like, where do we go to find a minority woman? How about that school on the Northwest side? Okay. And there's a young lady that's supposed to be so well read that, we got to put her on there. That's why she was on the radio station, because they thought she was so well read. And she also won this fire prevention, and, she was a pretty good student and, got a full scholarship to TSU. So it just worked out that way. But I think when she left to go to Baltimore and all that, they said she wasn't finished. She didn't do her senior project or something like that. So when she did the commencement in 87, some people said that she got her degree completed. Some think it was honorary. So we still got that controversy. So I don't know if it's going to be put to rest when she does this commencement speech or not.
Whatever. Because it's turned out all right for her.
Absolutely.
For sure. But hey, speaking of the NFL draft, I want to get your thoughts on it. Bryce Young out of Alabama, number 1 overall pick. CJ Stroud right after him.
Yep.
Mike, we've been talking about the emergence of the black quarterback since we've been doing this show. It is here, man.
Yeah, and once again, ironically, that has emerged, whereas the HBCU draftees has dissipated. So it's funny how that works. And it's black quarterbacks, which were mostly only at the HBCUs back in the day. And then they had a little thing where it says, oh, well, we're going to do these option quarterbacks. So we're going to put the black people there. They're technically glorified running backs, but they'll throw the ball maybe every once in a while. So, and remember, that was a big deal in the 70s, the option. So, and wing T and all that. So
you remember the one guy that stands, the guy, he went on to be a congressman from Oklahoma.
Oh, J.C. Watts.
J.C. Watts.
J.C. Watts, yeah.
Who ran that option.
Exactly. And Holloway, College Holloway, you had all of you had some stud quarterbacks back in the day, but they were basically glorified running backs. If you really want to get serious about it, I think the first time you saw somebody that was kind of more in the pocket was probably from Syracuse. Oh man, why am I forgetting his name?
And he didn't get drafted. I know you're talking.
You know what I'm talking about, right? He should have won the Heisman Trophy when they gave it to Tim Brown, who I think only had 2 catches.
I'll look him up. I know exactly.
Yeah. So that was the first one I remember saying, "Whoa, this might be the first black quarterback to get the Heisman." And then they gave it to our guy that went to Detroit with Rodney Peete already there, and I was like, "Why are they doing this? They gonna put all the black quarterbacks on one team?" And that was Andre Ware. So Andre Ware is the first one to win the Heisman, as a black quarterback.
I'm still looking for him. Doggone it. Was it McMahon?
No. It was the 87 season. It'll oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway.
Yeah, because we got to keep moving. But yeah. is his name?
So, but yeah,
John
right here,
McPherson, Mike.
yeah,
John
McPherson. There you go, McPherson. Yeah, McPherson. That was. I remember. That was like I said, 87. And I said, man, this dude might get the Heisman. He was like putting up some stats in Syracuse.
He would be a
he was in the
first-round
pocket a
draft
lot
pick
too.
today.
It wasn't like he was a running quarterback. He was in the
He
pocket, dishing.
He would be a first-round draft pick today. John McPherson would be a first-round draft pick for sure. So, hey, but we're gonna move on, man, because we got our guy on here, the legend himself. First of all, we want to welcome the great Matt Calvin to the show, and I want to answer this question right quick, Matt, before we introduce you. Edward, were there any HBCU players drafted at all? Yes, Ed. One black player, Isaiah Bolton from Jackson State. And so far, when I checked before we went on the air, we had 7 guys who had signed as free agents. So that's where we stand so far. Well, we know it's only going to be one guy drafted because the draft is over.
Right.
And maybe you have some more free agents.
And sometimes that works out better when you're free agent because you get more leverage of where you end up.
Yeah. But we want to get to some NBA, man, and bring in our great friend, a legend of the game, the great Matt Calvin. Mac.
Hey, guys.
What happened? What happened in my hometown?
You're only African-American athlete. And right now, the last time I checked, it was 107-107 in Philly. People thought Boston would run over these guys without Embiid, but Boston kind of plays down to their talent or something to the opposition, man. What's going on in Philly before we?
Well, not Boston.
You explain to Michael what happened to Milwaukee.
Well, good to see you guys. Happy Monday. And I've been watching the game throughout the Boston Celtics Philadelphia series, and the game is in Boston. The problem I have is that I love Boston, but they cannot play consistent basketball. Their problem is defensively. They should have been up by 12, 15 points at halftime, shooting over 60% from the field. And then they didn't get to the free throw line. So that tells you that all they're doing is relying on jump shots. And then what they've done, they've allowed the old man to get started, James Harden. Right. Young man I know very well. I had him in my camp when he was 11, 12, 13 years of age, and I'm always pulling for him. But they've allowed him to get started, and he's carrying that team. Now, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day, at the end of the game. I think Boston will pull it out at the end because both teams are in the free throw bonus situation, and these type of games, it boils down who can make free throws. And but they allowed DeAnthony Melton to have 17 points at halftime, the first half. That's unacceptable. Right. It really is. And then Jaylen Brown started off the first quarter, 16 points. I think he's only had 8 points since then. Yeah. So in 2.5 quarters. So that's the problem with the Boston Celtics. You can't blame it on maturity anymore. Last year you said, okay, they couldn't finish the deal with Golden State, but this year they have no excuse. Right. And I have seen improvement in Tatum. He's not just selling for outside shots. He's taking the ball to the rim. But for whatever reason, you're not getting consistent play from Hartford, and then you're inconsistent play from Smart, some of their key contributors. And so for this game to be close or tied up with 5 minutes to go, that's not acceptable in my opinion, if you really want to win the championship. Right. And another thing I like to add is that I think the championship, the conference finals, is this between Philadelphia and Boston. Those other two teams, Miami and New York, they're just playing team, really, to be honest. They're good. They're happy that they're there. New York's very happy, but they're not at the level of Boston and Philly. And the last thing I like to say is that with Joe Embiid out, if he doesn't come back into the third game, that means he's going to have problems throughout the whole series when you're dealing with the knee issue. And so that's my concern with Boston. not being able to finish the deal. If they don't win, if they lose this first game, they could be in trouble. Not that they can't win on the road, but it's the same scenario when they had Atlanta on the ropes and just couldn't finish the deal. So this is the same. This is, Leopard don't change spots. And so this particular team, this is their MO. This is the way they play. So I'm not surprised, but Harden's going to end up with 50+ points tonight, whether they win or lose.
And like you say, you still can't let him get going because he could still light you up.
Well, he can, Ricky, but it's like Father Time, as I've told you guys many times, Father Time does not lie. These series are not now every 2 or 3 games. These series are every other day. Yeah. And when you get 32, 33, like the Chris Paul, he looked old the other night. Yeah. And when you see LeBron, who had a fantastic game, but it's hard for these guys to recuperate within 24, 38 hours. It really is. And so that's going to be the telltale, in my opinion, is who can recover and stay consistent.
Edward Berry, I had your basketball card from back in the day. Blessings to you, Mr. Calvin. How about that?
Mr. Berry must be old if he's been around having my card.
All right. Well, okay.
But thank you. I'm glad you shared that with me. And I'll be more than happy to autograph it. And you can get my information from Mr. Rickey.
Yeah. Send me your email address, Edward, on the comment page, and we'll see if we can arrange something.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mike.
It may have a couple hundred, about $500 value now, but God willing, when I get into the Naismith Hall of Fame, it could be worth a couple thousand, and that's going to happen.
Oh, 63. All right.
63. Yeah. Hey, I'm with you, brother. Ed. You're a young man.
Now, do you want me to talk about?
Yes, we want to get to the real nitty gritty. This number 1 seed, and then of course, Ricky and I have been disagreeing with this Greek philosopher that came to the podium after they went to bed against this inferior team and let one player just destroy them. It was just bad. So, what? How do you surmise what happened in your old stomping ground?
But Mike, you have to love this young man's vulnerability. He was really honest, and he's what we need and needs to represent in the NBA today, professional basketball. It wasn't no punting it off on anyone else, but when you go 10 for 24 at the free throw line, that's a dart right there that's going to cripple your team. Now, on the other end, you did not get a good series out of Holiday. He did not play very well at all. And then why do you pick up the young kid, the shooter, Jay Crowder, and you don't play him?
Yeah.
Why do you play? Why do you play a Grayson Allen and those other guys, Connaughton? Those guys don't have the mental toughness that it takes to win championship games. And you saw at the end, Grayson Allen was like caught in the headlight, like a deer caught in the headlight. He had no clue.
How apropos to say deer in the headlights?
And here's the other problem. See, people talk about what Giannis didn't do, but he at the end, he took out Lopez and put in Connaughton. What happened? They threw over the top. If that would have been a 7-footer in there in Lopez, they wouldn't have gotten that shot off. Not at all. And so that was a problem. And then if you have Lopez in there, now Miami has to go to a matchup. They've got to match him up. So you don't go small in that situation. And if you're going to go small, make sure you have somebody big on the ball. Right. Giannis was no factor in playing the ball out of bounds. He's a factor down low so he can block shots and disrupt things. So that's a coaching situation, and nobody's ever going to point it out. But I played the game, I've coached the game, and I see those issues. It's not, he's 10-24 on the free throw line, but that's a coaching scenario. And you got a Matthews out there who's 36 himself who can't make a shot. They're talking about defending. Who to defend? Butler? Butler got 40. He, I mean, they should have sent a cab to the hotel to pick up Butler because he was definitely destined to get whatever he wanted. So anyway, I'm gonna just tell it like it is. I'm gonna keep telling it like it is.
Before you came on the air, we said that. I want Micah. I'm gonna get you back in there. And I was just gonna ask you about Giannis's free throw. Is that correctable? Can you become a better free throw shooter, man?
Well, his mechanics. No one's corrected his mechanics. He's been hovering around 60% his whole career. And you remember early on in his career, they allowed him to shoot the jump shot. He couldn't shoot that. So what does he do? He makes adjustment in this game, and everything he does now, he takes it to the basket. Yeah. Giannis is not a three-point shooter, so he realized that. And so what he does, everything is taken to the rim now. And if he takes a shot, it's within, 12, 15, 18 feet out, not 25 feet. So he's made those adjustments. But it's a mechanic problem, Ricky. My career free throw shooting was, I think, 88.6. And I worked on them. But, you work on correcting those mechanics. The same with Shaq. Shaq's was a mechanic problem when he shot the ball, like a dart. So I don't know if he can improve up to 10% or not, get to a 70% free throw shooter. It's mechanics, but and then the second thing is his mind. When he started missing, then it gets to your mind, and then you go back to your old habits. Free throw shooting is repetition and having good habits, good mechanics, and he doesn't have that.
But Matt, let me ask you this question. I don't know if you were able to pound the ball or anything like that, but with these guys having these huge hands and the ball being like a grapefruit, doesn't that like factor into if they're able to really, shoot it, and then somebody like yourself shoot 88%, and it's easier because you can like flow it off there. So is that a factor on the free throw line?
Well,
you get these guys with the big hands that can't shoot.
You shoot free throws not on your palm. You shoot free throws on your fingertip. And those guys have not mastered it. Dr. J had big hands, probably the same size as Giannis. But Doc probably shot in 75%. But you shoot them on your free throws, on your fingertips. And then when you get tired in the game, that's when mechanics really come into play. You don't shoot because you don't have the legs, you don't have the lift. But that's his problem that I see, and most big guys do not shoot good free throws. Look at Brook Lopez. I think he's 83% free throw shooter.
Yeah, he's got a nice
big guy.
He's got a nice.
But those are something that he's going to have to work on. But the positive about Giannis, he is such a humble and loving, caring guy. He would have more commercial if his English was a little bit better. I'm not knocking him, but they're the same with the Joker. Those guys are great players. They represent the game. I mean, you watch Joker come to the game, man, he's dressed up. He looks like a pro, and I think Charles Barkley commented on it last week that he looks like a pro coming to the game. Well, the rest of these guys look like they just, came off the playground somewhere.
I want to get, speaking of unprofessional, I want your thoughts about Memphis, but before then, because I thought the Lakers taught them a lesson that they should never forget. But I want to.
I don't think so, Ricky.
Do you think Budenholzer, before you get to that, is Budenholzer in trouble?
I'm sorry?
Milwaukee's coach, Mike Budenholzer, is he in trouble?
I think he's a horrible coach. I think he's a horrible coach.
Okay.
I think he had a lot of great experience. Yeah. That's why they got rid of him in Atlanta. I think he's a horrible coach. I really don't. I don't think he plays to his strength. I don't think he's consistent. But I think their biggest problem, Milwaukee's biggest problem, is their bench. Their bench. I mean, when a 35, 36-year-old Joe Ingles can come in and do what he does, but he couldn't do that in the last game because, just you're 35 years old, you just can't sustain it. But I think Mike is a terrible coach.
Wow. You think they'll fire him?
Well, yeah. I don't think they'll fire him this year.
Right.
Because they're going to blame it on some other things. But I think that if he doesn't get to the finals next year, they will get. And then the other guy I think is a horrible coach. Is that guy in Memphis? I think he's a horrible coach. And as I've articulated before, I watched the bench. They have no balance in terms of African American assistant coaches on their bench.
Right.
To be able to help steer and be mature assistant coaches, African Americans that can work with some of these guys. Memphis is a headache, guys. Memphis is a talented team, but they are a young, immature team that's not going anywhere. And for them to be in LA for 3 days, 2 days before that 6th game, oh my gosh, you know they're going to be out partying.
Now, Taylor Jenkins, you're talking about Taylor Jenkins and Memphis. Go ahead, Mike.
What about Snyder? What about Snyder in Atlanta? You know, he had his situation in Utah where they just never could get over the hump, but now all of a sudden they're talking about how great of a coach he is in Atlanta. So what do you think about Quinn Snyder?
Well, you know, leopard don't change spots, fellas. You know, Quinn Snyder is a middle of the road coach. He's not going anywhere because they just signed him to a 4-year contract.
Right.
You know, his biggest challenge is how does he get along with Trae Young? And that's what got McMillan fired. But that's a team, if they can really make some changes and get some veteran players there and make a move to get rid of Collins. Collins is, you know, he's inconsistent. I love the other kid better than Hunter. I love Hunter better. But then they got to get better shooters around Trae, because if not, he's not going to stay in this league long in terms of being efficient, because he has to have that ability as a little guard to take the ball to the basket. And when he does, man, he just gets beat up.
Yeah.
Hey, James Harden just hit a 3 to put Philly up 117-115 with 8 seconds left.
Wow.
See, that's unacceptable.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable.
He's
Well,
got,
you know,
40,
about 52,
he's got
52.
45 points tonight.
Wow. Well, you want to know something, Mac, though, about Boston? Another thing that I see, you know, that you didn't mention was the ball handling. Jalen and Jason, they just turn the ball over too much. I see Jalen trying to dribble through crowds, always getting ripped, turning the ball over. There was one stretch in this game where he had back-to-back turnovers. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So that's also their demise, too. I think their inability to control the ball.
No, you know, you have to value.
Right.
You have to value the ball in playoffs, because those turnovers are very critical down at the end.
Yes.
And that's what's happening. I know what you're saying, Michael. I saw the same thing. But Boston could be in trouble if they go on and lose this game.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's a 6-game series. Now you got to win 4 games out of 6, with 3 games going to be in Philadelphia with Embiid coming back. And if I was Doc, I would rest Embiid until the 3rd game.
Yeah. Great point.
And then I've said on your show before, Ricky, I've said on your show, when it comes down to coaches, I'll take Doc Rivers over any other coach in the league.
Wow.
And he's going to outcoach that young kid who's 35 years old. And there's another, he's a miniature deer in the headlights. You know.
That, you know, your buddy Ray Scott would certainly agree with you, because he's a big fan of Doc Rivers.
Unfortunately, the media tries to roast him and say he's horrible because he's blowing all these 3-1 leads. So it's a narrative against him too.
Yeah.
And Mike, to your point about turnovers, Marcus Smart has 6 turnovers tonight, and Jaylen Brown has 4. Jaylen Brown has 5.
Yeah, that's
hey, Ricky, it's the great
turnovers between 2 guys, man.
No.
Hey, Ricky, it's the great Moses Malone used to say, he got 6 turnovers more than a dead man.
Philly wins 119-115.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. You want to get to the and I like Boston to get to the get to the championship, but if I was a betting man, I'm not going to bet against Doc Rivers.
Wow.
I'm not going to.
But you know what I like what you said, man. Now, rest Embiid. You got what you wanted.
Yep.
And go back to Philly.
Yeah. But Ricky, isn't and Mike, it's the same scenario at game 5 in Boston, with Boston's up 3-1 and they can't close the deal. So it says something about that team. They have a couple holes. I love Brogdon off the bench. I love Williams off the bench, but they don't sustain it. They don't sustain runs, and they don't get stops when you have to get stops. And when you're in the playoff, you have to get defensive stops.
Well, and it's funny when they brought Brogdon in, they thought that was going to be replacing Smart. Remember how Smart was all defensive player of the year, but he was giving them no offense, especially against the Warriors. And they said, well, they're bringing in Brogdon now. He might end up emerging as the starting point guard to give them some offense and, a bigger guard that could post up and all that. I don't know what happened. I mean, then again, you had this whole mess in the beginning of the season where your coaches let go over some personal stuff that really didn't even need to be aired out. And then the fact that you sat there and said, well, he's suspended for an indefinite time, but we'll probably bring him back. But then you let the interim guy become the head coach and say, oh, okay, get out of here, Udoka.
Well,
so that's been a mess from the beginning.
This is the time it shows your inexperience as a coach or player. Mm-hmm. When you can't make adjustments on pick and rolls, when you can't make adjustments when they're blitzing you. And so I think that's the problem. But it's a 6-game series now, fellas.
Yeah.
With 3 games in Philadelphia.
Asking, is Jenkins and Budenholzer off of Pop's coaching tree? I'm not sure, Ed.
But if he's saying that to the negative, you got to give one guy credit, Mike Brown. Even though they did blow that series, but Mike Brown up in Sacramento, he came from Popovich.
But he built a culture, Michael.
Yeah,
he built a culture, and winning and being successful in the NBA, you must have a identity.
Yeah,
we've talked about it. And what he brought in 2 things. He brought in defense, and he gave those guys some confidence. They already had the pieces, and then they drafted a young kid, Murray, who I think is going to be a phenomenal player. And they have some veteran players, Monk. Mm-hmm. They just did not. They had too much Steph Curry last night, and then Golden State had the winning culture. They had championship medal. So that Steph Curry's one that carried them last night and won that game. But Sacramento, they'll be back because they're young.
Matt, you are one of the great players of this game. You have seen all the great ones. Your thoughts on Curry's performance yesterday?
My thoughts on Curry?
Yeah, and in particular, his performance yesterday, and your thoughts on this series coming up with the Lakers.
Steph Curry will not let you lose. He will not let you lose on the court or off the court. And he came in his first 2 or 3 years in humble beginnings. He wasn't a Steph Curry when he was younger because he had all the injuries. Mm-hmm. So he's developed a mentality that he doesn't want to lose, and he does not want to look bad as a player. He's worked hard to be where he's at. So that same mentality has carried over to the championship identity along with Draymond Green. You can say what you want to say about Green, but he is part of that identity and that culture of that team. I mean, he gets suspended and get out, but he will not let that team lose. And then you've got a guy like Steve Kerr, Steve Kerr, who also brings a championship mentality and a championship greed from Chicago days in San Antonio. And so when you have that, and then you got a front office that's willing to go out and bring in players and pay players, man, you've got a winning recipe. And it would not surprise me if they go on and get out of the finals, get out of the Western Conference final. I think it's still going to be Denver. I just don't think Phoenix have enough. I think you got an old Chris Paul, and you only have 2 guys. And I just think, and in the way that Murray's playing, but in regards to Golden State, they got another 2 or 3 year window, in my opinion. And, Klay Thompson was out 2 years, fellas, and he's come back. He's not as consistent as he used to be, but he's still a very valuable piece. Mm-hmm. And then you have Poole, who's still young and immature. But when he has it going, man, that's a tough team to beat, along with Wiggins. So and then Looney. You got players that play their role, and that's what championship teams are made of: role players and guys that buy into what they want to do.
But the Lakers have the best record in the NBA since the trade deadline, and the best defense, and they got a guy that's hard to beat too in LeBron James.
Well, again, Father Time will creep in on the series somewhere. And then you have an inconsistent AD. I would not put a nickel or a dollar on Anthony Davis, because you don't know what you're going. He's like Forrest Gump said, with a box of chocolate candy. You never know what you're going to get. You really don't, man. But it's going to be a good series. I think the Warriors win it in 5, in my opinion. I just don't think that the consistent play. The guy who won that series for the Lakers was Russell.
D'Angelo, yeah.
He was the key. I mean, he made shots, and and then Anthony Davis showed up one game. He played. I think Anthony Davis played 2 good games out of 6, and you can't have that inconsistency at this level. Now LeBron's going to be LeBron, but I just don't think they're deep enough. I don't think they have that mentality. I mean, it's still the Lakers. They have a legacy, but I still don't think they can beat the Golden State Warriors.
All right, so digressing back to what you said about Steph, remember, there's people that blamed him, along with some people blame Draymond, and of course they blame Harrison Barnes, but they blame him for that loss in 2016 also, when he threw that behind the back pass that went out of bounds, and that was like a key moment in the game, and they say, you know what, you're not making good plays. That's why you didn't get the MVP last year, and that's why they never really gave it to you until this Boston series. So there's some people that still don't give Steph credit, especially when KD got there.
Yeah, Mike, I don't buy that. I my memory still serves me well. I don't remember the behind the back pass. Okay. But I do remember when they got KD, they won 2 championships. You had a young 31, 32-year-old KD. His problem is that, he's always like a little Bo Weevil, man. As my grandfather used to say, always looking for a home, and so he had to go to a team where he could be the main guy, and that's what happens to a lot of these players. Same with Shaq, and same with Kobe. When he couldn't handle Shaq, that relationship, but he's fortunate to get Paul Gasol and won 2 championships. Exactly. But guys that are great players, it's their team, but they want their team to be all their team. And I think that was Kevin Durant's problem, and now he's older now. He recognizes he's playing with the Suns, and that's Devin Booker's team. He realizes that, but I just don't think they have enough pieces to win. But Steph Curry, you can't take away his legacy, man. You can't take away that kid. And he's another player that represent nothing but positivity for the NBA. I mean, there's still enough guys around. As I've shared with you my thoughts about the NBA, I just think that Adam Silver, who I love, I just think that there's 2 lacks. They don't really represent and sit on the shoulders as former players who, was professional, brought professionalism to the game on and off the court. And I think you're lacking that now, and that's why you're seeing the John Morant issues and all the fights that went on throughout the league and the fines that went on throughout the league. And I hope they get that back.
What an immature team Memphis was.
Hey, if you guys ever saw the movie Carter, when those guys won the championship and went out and party, and he went to the house where they were partying, and he said, "My ghetto hoopsters."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting you said that, because my frat brother, when I was telling Ricky that we went up to Vallejo to had a viewing of one of our frat brothers.
Matt, what frat is he in? Because we're in the same frat he is.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
one of our frat brothers.
But
our frat brother.
But he's from Richmond. The frat brother that I rode with was from Richmond. So I said, what was it like? He was in college at the time, I think, when he was out of college, but he was from Richmond, but he remembers when that Coach Carter stuff happened. And he just said, and I said, well, what was that like when he canceled the season? And he said that, he had warned them that they don't get it together on the court or in the classroom, he's going to cancel the season. So, yeah, so that right there, I had somebody that actually, knew what that was all about when he did that. Besides the movie with Sam Jackson, did a great job.
And you know what's amazing, guys? And I say this: John Moran went through some counseling. He was suspended for, too, but yet his father still goes to the game, wears his shades, drinks his liquor, and still act like immature person himself. And that's if John Moran's going to get the notoriety and be respected off the court as well as on the court, then his father's going to have to change. They have a really negative culture there. So as we're talking about this, I just see that teams have to take responsibility, but they're afraid to really go after the star players because coaches think they're going to get fired. But if you don't set a standard, a professionalism,
just like Trae Young and,
you're going to lose anyway.
Just like Trae Young and Nate McMillan. Hey, the Suns and Rockets about to play. I mean, Nuggets about to play. They used to be the Rockets years ago.
They used to be Rockets before I came there, and then we changed it to the Nuggets.
Yeah. Is playing in Denver, is that really a problem in terms of the altitude, Matt?
Ricky, it is extremely difficult if you're not there for 3, 4, 5 days.
Right.
Because in the ABA, and before I went to the Nuggets, you come in and you by halftime, man, your lungs are burning. And so they used to until the NBA put in a policy or rule that the home team had to provide oxygen tanks to the players, and I used to tell our trainer, hide the oxygen tank and let us get up in 35, 40 points, then you can bring them out. But let's run their ass off the floor, But no, it's tough to if you haven't been there for 2 or 3 days, it's really tough to get your win.
Well, what about Salt Lake City? Don't they have a high elevation?
It's not as high. It's not as bad.
That's high. Okay.
No. Salt Lake City. I mean, Denver is like going to Mexico City. That's why a lot of athletes train in Mexico City because of the high altitude. Yeah. But if you go in for 1 day, a day and a half, and you play, oh man, you look at the winning percentage of the Nuggets over the last 20 years. Yeah. It's incredible. And again on the sideshow, you look at the home team winning, the visiting team winning percentage coming in playing the Lakers and the Clippers. Yeah. Guys come here is Hollywood, man. It's they're clubbing and everything.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing, Ricky, about the AB. You do realize, and I know because that's your old league, but Denver would make history if they do make it to the finals.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Ricky, so that they'll be the last of the 4 teams to make it to the finals because all the other 3 have made it, and San Antonio is the only one that won. So that's a trivia question I get to some of my students.
Well, they're not the first. They wouldn't be the first team that made it to the ABA. I mean, Denver Nuggets would, but they're not the first ABA team because San Antonio.
No. I said they'll be the last team of the 4 to make it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you stay around long enough, you should.
No, but look how long it is. That's what I'm saying. That you had all the other 3 have made it to the finals at least, and San Antonio is the only one that won.
Hey, Matt, last thing, what are you going to be looking for in these conference semifinal series?
Well, at the end of the day, defense wins. At the end of the day, I don't care how many points Booker gets and Kevin Durant gets. You got to get stops. And I think the team that has that defensive mentality is the Golden State Warriors. I mean, that was an incredible, not offensive showing yesterday, but defense to allow that team to get 100 points. They're averaging 115, 20 points throughout the year. So I think defense wins. It will always win when it comes down to the end of the day. And I think that that would be the same thing with if Embiid comes back. Embiid is a rim protector.
Yeah.
Boston got a lot of layups early in the first half and throughout the game. They will not get that when Embiid is back.
Yeah, they really blew an opportunity tonight.
Yeah.
Hey,
going back to Denver, you know, I think Denver has enough firepower and they got a great player, but they have some defensive problems because Joker's not a great defensive player.
No.
And so if I was coaching against Denver, I would say attack him, attack the rim. And I think you saw that in a couple of the series that Denver played at first, you know, so against Minnesota. So it's going to be interesting. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's a Golden State Finals against Denver. And I think Denver wins in 7 games.
Hey, you see what Ed Berry says, Mac? Y'all hear oxygen like old Boston Garden turn off the hot water. Was it?
Wait. Popovich turned off the air conditioning.
The garden.
Popovich turned off the air conditioning against the Heat, and LeBron had cramps. Don't forget that one.
Well, Boston used to do. Listen, guys, in my 5 years after the merger, going into Boston, first it was a little dinky high school locker room,
right.
You know, where you had coat hangers. You had no regular modern style lockers.
Right.
And then we really never stayed. We never practiced all 5 years, even in the playoffs. We never practiced. No one ever practices at the Boston Garden, at the arena. And then throughout the period, if you're in the playoffs, if you come there and it's a big game, inevitably, the hotel alarm system goes off. Oh, you listen, you talk to a lot of former players and they'll tell you the same thing. So yes, the shower waters will be cold. They did all kind of things, and this was what Red Auerbach started this policy.
Yeah.
And then of course you remember the old Boston Garden where you'd be dribbling and all of a sudden you lose the ball because of the cracks in the floor.
Dead spots.
You know, so those things still exist, but I don't think anything's going to help them now in this series. They're going to need a lot of past issues and challenges to help them because if Philly stole this one game tonight and then B comes back, it's going to be tough because they've done what they needed to do, win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, we got to get out of here, but Mac, you know we want to keep getting your thoughts on the playoffs, so we're going to be coming back to you. You are our go-to guy in the crunch time, baby.
Well,
nothing better than have a future Hall of Famer take us home.
Well, thank you. I thank you for allowing me to come on and be honest with my assessment and just tell it like it is. I have nothing to be ashamed of, and I enjoy chopping it up with you guys about the game. Michael and I agree today. I can't. That's hard to believe.
Yeah. Well, but Ricky and I didn't agree though.
But hey, this is just round 1, man. We got plenty more basketball to talk.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be fun. I think the third game back in Philly. I don't know when that will be. Probably Friday, but I think you're going to see.
Let's see. So they'll go Wednesday. Friday.
But what I was going to say, I think you're going to see the league. Hand Mr. Embiid finally the MVP trophy.
Yeah.
Well
deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be weird if he gets the MVP trophy and then Joker wins the championship? Wouldn't that be crazy?
Well, it's a consolation.
Yes.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you to all our viewers out there for checking in with us on this Monday edition of the African American Athlete. We want to thank ABA, NBA legend Matt Calvin, Mike Roberson. Thank you, brother. And I'm Rick Hampton. Peace, everybody. See you soon.
Yes.
All right.
Take care.
Rest in peace, Ralph, and rest in peace, Ken.